Hey everyone, Mystical Mark here. So this will be your weekly astrology forecast for the week of July 6th to the 12th of 2025. Before I get into the charts for this week, if you're looking for any kind of a reading with me, of course, all those links are in the description below and in my bio if you are on TikTok. And also, before we get into the charts for this week, as I say at the beginning of all of my videos, my guidance has been and likely always will be, astrology is an energetic template conducive to certain things, okay? The analogy that they give me with that is the energetic template or the astrology. It's like a math formula, okay? So that formula, it exists as like the astrology chart or the template, right? However, there's variables that exist within that, and we get to control those variables that happen. Okay, so I get a lot of stuff through intuitively. I usually tune into each aspect to see how it feels, what I'm getting with each one. Okay, however, any intuitive prediction that I make regarding maybe a specific set of events or anything like that is always subject to change because we have free will. Okay, that energetic template is still there, so things are still going to exist and happen within that type of template, but we have that ability to adjust the variables within that. We always have free will, we always will. All right, I think that should be enough clarity on that. So with all that being said, let me pull up the charts on my end here and we can get started for this week. So we'll start here on Sunday, July 6th. Now we've got several things going on today. Let's start off with, okay, they're bringing me to, I think we'll start off with this Sun in semi-square to Uranus. Now, Uranus is about to enter Gemini, so it happens basically the night of July 6th into the 7th. Let me just have a look here. So 2:12 a.m. Central, or I guess Mountain Time. I'm on a different Central Time, so yeah, whatever. Anyways, it's in the middle of the night if you're in this part of the world. Okay, is when Uranus will come into Gemini. So with this semi-square, this is going to be right before, Uranus enters into Gemini. So we've got the Sun here in Cancer and Uranus there at 29 degrees of Taurus. One thing I'm getting is that this might be a very nurturing kind of a thing, whether Cancer is very nurturing emotionally, Taurus is very nurturing like physically, etc. But there's some kind of difference or like shake-up that comes with it. There's like that Uranian vibe that exists within that in some way. Progressive is what I'm feeling, is much more progressive in terms of that nurturing aspect. Okay, let me just tune into this Sun semi-square Uranus here. Sun semi-square Uranus. Okay, I'm feeling that stubbornness of Taurus. But then there's an aspect of like giving birth. There's a strong feminine part to this. There's a very strong feminine energy, and it's like it's giving birth to something. A change is the word that I'm getting. Giving birth to aspects of change or nurturing aspects of change. So we have to remember that as Uranus will enter into Gemini, it's not going to permanently be there yet. It's still going to retrograde back into Taurus and then come back into Gemini. A lot of these outer planet stuff like Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, their retrogrades will retrograde back into previous signs, and then they won't fully be into those new signs until 2026. So we experience the start of it now, this year in 2025, and then next year is when we're fully in it. However, I kind of feel like these retrogrades, it's like a finalizing of things, but that energy, it doesn't feel necessarily as strong. Well, it is, but it's like, it's at the end, so it's not as like, how do I put this? It's like it's not as much to worry about in those old signs in that way with that old energy. It's like tying up loose ends and then moving forward is kind of the sense that I get from that. I'm just going to double check here. Okay, we are still good. Sorry. Sometimes I have technical difficulties. I just want to make sure it's flowing smoothly here. All right. So that's that Sun in semi-square to Uranus, okay? As maybe that relates to, as Uranus will come into Gemini overnight. Now, let's have a look at some of these other aspects today. Let's start here. So we're going to have Venus in sextile to both Saturn and Neptune. All right, so Venus is in Gemini now, still actually kind of conjunct Uranus, really, if you consider that. It's like an out of sign conjunction, but Uranus will soon be again on top of Venus, this time in Gemini. All right, so let me just kind of tune into this Venus. Let's go Venus sextile Saturn first. Feeling very much that restrictive, authoritative aspect of Saturn. Okay, in Aries, okay, hold on. There's a communicative aspect, possibly with other people, possibly surrounding aspects of boundaries, but it's about being our own authentic self and individual self. So we're dealing with this aspect of Aries where it represents our self, our identity. Saturn tends to teach through restriction. However, through that, it's also about setting appropriate boundaries towards our self, our identity, etc. So there may be an aspect of communication here with this Venus in Gemini that exists within within partnerships and relationships that set kind of the tone for this independent aspect. This can feel a bit harsh because people might not be used to this boundary setting type of behavior from that individual level, but you have to understand that you have to respect somebody's individuality just as much as you respect your own. Okay, so when this is happening, if somebody's setting up boundaries, respect that, as you could be setting up boundaries in the same way and you'd want that respected as well. Excuse me. So when I burp like that, it's maybe the guide's trying to say, pay attention to that. So that's maybe something to pay attention to here with this energy going on. All right. With this Neptunian stuff, let me just tune into that Venus in sextile to Neptune. So Neptune is retrograde. This feels a lot more internally focused through that aspect of compassion for self as it relates to what these communications are in that boundary setting. Yeah, because they're still in conjunction here, and Venus is going to be in sextile to both on this day. So that is related to that. And that likely, what I'm kind of getting now is that likely can relate to this sun in, that semi-square to Uranus in Venus's sign of Taurus. Okay, so it's nurturing the aspect of change. There's a strong feminine energy there that exists within that could be helping us here through that aspect of that individuality, sovereignty, etc. that's going on there. Also on this day too, and I feel this may be a bit related to that, is we're going to have Mars here in Virgo in sextile to Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio. Okay, so let me just tune into this here. Mars sextile Black Moon Lilith. Initially, I did feel a strong aspect of that Lilith, that very strong, powerful feminine energy that just doesn't give a fuck about about much. Okay, she doesn't fuck with bullshit, right? So I'm getting an aspect of this fixing energy with Virgo, that idea of wanting to fix stuff, likely where we have been outcasted. Because with Black Moon Lilith and Scorpio, we're transforming these aspects, giving this intensity of that strong feminine energy, but also transforming where that has been outcasted and healing that, etc. in our lives. And with this Mars and Virgo, it's taking action on maybe certain details or to fix certain things surrounding that kind of a vibe. So let me just tune into that Mars and sextile to Black Moon Lilith. Yeah, their energies are very different. But it does feel like that aspect of fixing that kind of stuff. And with Lilith there, she's working with that energy. There's that aspect of that intensity of that strong feminine energy, but she's working with this Mars and Virgo type of energy to take action to like fix things and heal things and stuff like that. It feels like from a more high vibrational level. Even though that Lilith can be like, let's do something about this, but it's almost like from a higher level of working on fixing and all that kind of stuff, and using that strong feminine energy in that higher vibrational way. All right, we're also on this day here going to have, let me pull it back here, Venus in quintile to the North Node here in Pisces. So let me just tune into this. Venus in quintile to the North Node there. Initially, I thought I wasn't maybe getting anything, but I think that's maybe part of it is there's an aspect of unknown here. Okay, so what I'm getting is what I've talked about before with this North Node in Pisces is heading in an unknown direction that maybe we can't fully see as we head into it. As Pisces is, like that fog, you're not really seeing it, but you have to trust your intuition, trust the path that you're on. Venus and Gemini, of course, Gemini relating to the mind has a difficult time in understanding that. Let me just see here. However, I think Venus doesn't necessarily have a problem in understanding that because that's more of a feminine energy. So let me just kind of tune in here. Again, Venus in quintile to the North Node. Again, this feels like it's not something that's hidden, but it's not something that's being put into the foreground again with this quintile. So it's something that's happening, like there's progress maybe being made in the background in some way into a new unknown direction that we're not fully seeing or being fully aware of, but it is happening. It's not like it's hiding. It's more like this aspect of like hiding in plain sight, like it's happening, but nobody's really paying attention to it yet. What else are we getting from this? It's almost like there's a block to that, like that mind doesn't understand it. So like it's not being, like I'm not getting this communicative aspect. It's almost like with Venus and Gemini, it's almost like there's a lack of communication surrounding this than any actual communication, right? It's like the mind doesn't understand it. So it's almost like it's turning it off. It's a really weird vibe to this because usually I feel aspects of both energies, but now it's just like, yeah, it's almost like there's a lack of communication there for whatever reason surrounding whatever this direction is that we're moving forward in. Interesting. All right, so that's it for Sunday the 6th here. Let's move on to Monday the 7th. Now, I guess we can start off with the elephant in the room here, the big item, the big ticket item, the Uranus coming into Gemini. So we can see here, we got Uranus here at 0 degrees of Gemini. Now, there's a few things that I kind of got prior a long time ago to Uranus coming into Gemini is that things are probably going to get crazier. Okay, so we've had Uranus and Taurus. Now, Uranus and Taurus is learning to see the value in change, learning to understand and seeing the value in progress and change. It might be slow in Taurus, but Taurus is stubborn to change. But as soon as you can see the value in change, it begins to move forward, right? And that manifestation aspect, that beautiful feminine energy that Taurus has, then works with that Uranian energy. But because everything in this world has been so manipulated and people have been so fucking stubborn about so many things and being stuck in old ways, that hasn't really happened. I mean, it has happened to an extent, but it's probably likely more in the background than what we're actually seeing. Now, with Uranus and Gemini, you have no choice anymore except to change, because Gemini is very quick. Gemini is going to move forward very quickly. These are both air signs. These are both masculine signs. It's going to happen. So, and the craziness, which is that Uranian, Aquarian type of energy, is going to happen quickly and just go, 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 go. So if you think things have been crazy now, they're probably going to get a lot crazier as we not only head into this energy, but to continue to go forward. Okay, and there could be lots of wild communication that comes through here as well. Okay, maybe from certain people, but that's kind of, we're gonna know that already. But yeah, again, and this is what I'm getting now is very intense progress, very swift progress, and moving forward in a lot of ways. And a lot of people won't be ready for it. They simply won't be ready for it. They won't understand it. They won't whatever, because when Uranus was in Taurus, they didn't see the value in progress and change. And because they never saw that and they became so stubborn, when this happens very quickly, it's like you're going to get, knocked off your rocker. Like you're just like the old man in the rocking chair, and that's it. You're done, right? Like it's almost like you don't have a choice anymore, but if you're kind of stuck in that old way, you're going to have a very difficult time with the energy that is coming up, because, and especially I'm being drawn to as well, Pluto in Aquarius here too, which is Uranus's sign, intensifying this aspect of progress and change and moving forward. All right, so with all that being said, let me just tune in here to feel into this energy here of Uranus coming into Gemini. Hey, Uranus and Gemini. I feel it feels very revolutionary. And I think that's maybe where the craziness is coming from. Like a lot of what I get is a lot of people like shouting out, standing out, like there's this strong communicative revolutionary type of an energy that is coming through with Uranus coming into Gemini here. And it's pushing for change. Okay, it's a revolutionary vibe, that aspect of Aquarius, humanitarian, revolutionary, that kind of thing. And of course, with Gemini being that outspoken, communicative type of energy, pushing for that almost like revolution and change. So when I say things are going to get crazier, well, they are, because things need to change, right? Things need to change and if we look at this, I have Uranus highlighted here, and it is in fact building, it's within a 2-degree trine, well, 3 now basically, because we're at 259, to Pluto in Aquarius. So we've got Uranus in building into this trine to Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, surrounding these aspects where we know we already have had a need to transform and change. And I think that's part of where this intensity is coming from. And let me just kind of maybe tune into that trine that's building with Uranus trine Pluto. Initially, what I got was almost like that. I got brought back to like the end of the Cold War, like in the late 80s, early 90s, with the falling of the Berlin Wall, all of that kind of stuff. That kind of an energy. And I believe Uranus was in Capricorn at that time, so that destabilizing of that aspects of control, the Iron Curtain, that kind of stuff that just revolutionized and broke it apart. That was initially what I got with that Pluto energy and that Uranian energy in this way. Like this is very intense. It feels very revolutionary and very intense in this way. Let me just continue to end it again. That building of Uranus and trying to Pluto. It's still kind of the same, but still, like, I'm getting like an urban vibe to this. So but I feel like that's relating to aspects of progress, almost like urbanization, technology, progress, like that kind of a thing. But it's almost like things are quickly and like, I want to say flowing smoothly. I don't know where that comes from. But it's like this urban aspect, but what I get is like that progressive type of aspect when you consider maybe more of like the country life, which is a bit more slow, calm. It's more like conservative in a lot of ways, whereas this more urban type of quick progress change, you got to do this, but it flows very smoothly. There's an aspect of intense progress that is like existing with this energy. Okay, I'm just going to tune in. I'm just going to focus specifically more on this Uranus and Gemini stuff for now. So let me just kind of tune back into that to see if there's anything else with this Uranus and Gemini. Nothing else other than what I've gotten, at least for now. So that is the initial ingress here. Now, as with anything, as Uranus moves through a sign, will go retrograde, etc., that energy can shift and change depending on what it's aspecting and other energies that exist surrounding that, etc. Okay, so that is the initial kind of a vibe as this transition is happening. However, that's kind of likely to stick until whatever that revolution is that needs to occurs. Right? And then again, that energy can shift and be used in a different way, right? So again, I'm kind of going back to what I've already said, and that's what this initial shift is feeling like at the moment. Okay? We're also going to have Venus in trine to Pluto retrograde here on this day as well. So let me just kind of tune into this. Venus in trine to Pluto. I don't know how to describe Venus and Gemini and trine to Pluto. I'm being drawn back to like this energy of like the 1990s. I have no idea what that means, but that's what it feels like. Like the energy of like the early to midnight, I would say, early 90s-ish. I have no idea why I feel like that. Honestly, I just have to trust what I'm getting, but I don't really fully understand. So whatever, for those that were alive then, whatever that could mean maybe to you or what that feels like to you, I don't know why I'm getting that. I honestly have no idea, but that's the energy that I'm getting. And maybe it relates back to that aspect of Cold War ending and like liberation, progress. Like, I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of progress that existed at that time. I mean, that was like the birth of the internet, of the web browser, of that kind of stuff. Like there was a lot of progress that occurred in that time frame as it led into the early 2000s. But, and maybe that is part of that. But I mean, the one thing that did come through there was the aspect of Princess Diana was another energy that I felt through with that as well. And maybe there's an aspect, that feminine aspect. I mean, the fact that she was part of the royal family, that aspect of like that powerful feminine energy, like there's something about that. I don't know. It's that early 90s energy and the aspect of Princess Diana. I have no idea what that has to do, except for the fact that there's this, obviously with Venus and Gemini, there's a feminine energy here, but then there's this strong transformational power of Pluto and this very like Aquarian energy, like this progressive type of energy. She was a very humanitarian kind of progressive type of person. And so maybe that's the type of vibe that this feels like. It kind of feel, let me just kind of tune into this again. Venus trine Pluto retrograde. That's just what it feels like, that strong, powerful, but like I think I'm understanding it now, more of a humanitarian, feminine type of an energy. I'm getting with a lot lately with when I'm doing this is tends to be a very strong divine feminine energy that is coming through in a lot of ways. I have never ever felt like Princess Diana ever coming through with this kind of thing, but that's what it feels like to me. So I don't remember when she died. I know it was in the 90s. I don't remember at what part of the 90s. So, but this feels like, I don't know, very early 90s Princess Diana, whatever. Or maybe they're two kind of separate energies. She's there and that's the energy of what that is. I don't know. That's just kind of what I feel with this aspect coming through. So maybe what you can consider that is that maybe more as maybe the example that they're giving, like I said before, of that very strong feminine energy as it relates to, she was part of the royal family, etc. So there's that higher level of like that feminine really helping in a very humanitarian, positive, progressive kind of a way. This gets interesting for me sometimes because I don't know what I'm going to get here when I feel into these things. All right, so let's have a look here as well. Okay, so next up on the list here, we're going to have Mercury in square to Black Moon Lilith here in Scorpio. So Mercury in Leo, Mercury in shadow in Leo. Mercury goes retrograde. Excuse me, I don't know what's going on here. Oh. Mercury in shadow in square to this Black Moon Lilith. Okay, let me kind of tune into this. Okay, so what I'm getting with this is this is leading up to this retrograde energy of where we have been outcasted in a lot of ways. So this is shining light on certain things. Let me just kind of maybe give a tune in a bit more. It's Mercury shadow in square to Black Moon Lilith. Yeah, so this is doing is this is highlighting areas where we've been outcasted and where that needs to be transformed and healed in some way. All right. And this is likely to continue to occur, obviously, through this retrograde, through Mercury retrograde, because Mercury will obviously come back to this point, etc. So again, in the shadow period, whatever is being highlighted is what is going to come up again through the retrograde. Now this is a square, so this is pushing for resolution in some way, because what I feel is there's an intensity that exists with that, where things are being brought up and highlighted that need to be reviewed in terms of where we've been outcasted in order to take action, with that square energy pushing for resolution, to take action to transform and change in those areas. All right, so it's being strongly highlighted and really pushed through with this energy now. However, this is being brought up, and it'll be likely be looked over again and again as Mercury goes through this retrograde here, or his shadow period, and then goes retrograde, etc. Okay, we're also going to have Mars here in this sesqui-square to Chiron in Aries. So Chiron is, of course, in Mars's sign of Aries. And Mars is in Virgo. So let me just give a tune into this energy here. Mars, sesqui-square Chiron. Okay, so it feels like there's definitely still this action side of this Mars in Virgo where it's working on fixing something. With this Chiron energy, it's what I get is it's healing. It doesn't feel very like that heaviness, wounded part of Chiron. It feels like it's healing whatever this Aries energy kind of is, but it just feels like it's fixing, like it's taking action to fix. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's related to our independent self-identity, etc., as Mars rules Aries, so and Mars is in Virgo, so it almost just feels like this is relating very much to just this Virgo type of energy. With this sesqui-square, this is something that can't be swept under the rug any longer. So there's a part of this that is just being like, we're being forced almost to like work on and fix a lot of things. And of course, with Mercury in shadow about to go retrograde, that's kind of a strong vibe that is going on here, and it relates to progress and change and all this other stuff that's occurring as well, right? So it kind of makes sense in how that is being used, how this energy is currently being used with that vibe. All right, let's have a look here as well as the Sun in trine to Juno retrograde. Okay, so again, Juno retrograde dealing with partnerships, contractual partnerships, could be business partnerships, contracts, any kind of committed partnership, etc. So Sun trine Juno retrograde. There's a very strong feminine energy here too. that's really pushing for whatever needs to be transformed and changed within these partnerships and contracts. Like, there's a very strong authoritative feminine energy that feels like it's coming from this sun in Cancer that is really helping with whatever needs to be transformed and changed within whatever these committed partnerships or contracts are. Is there anything else that's coming through with that? Yeah, it really feels like a very strongly working, like it's a very strong authoritative feminine energy that's really pushing to transform and change whatever that is, whatever those contracts are, whatever people are involved, all that stuff. There's a very strong authoritative feminine type of energy that is really coming through with that, of course, and pay attention to that, excuse me. So anyway, the guides are trying to say focus on that. But yeah, there's something very strongly coming through with that there. Okay, I'm going to move ahead here to Tuesday the 8th. I just want to see how far. Okay. Spent a lot of time for 2 days there, but anyway. Okay, so Tuesday the 8th here. Let's go. We're going to have Mercury. Where are we? Mercury here in quintile to Uranus. All right. So initially what I'm kind of getting is there's maybe that, again, that behind the scenes. Not really behind the scenes, but it's not really being hidden, but it's there, you're working on it, it's not to the forefront of, it feels like stuff that's being brought up during this Mercury shadow for a reason, and surrounding, this progress and change of this Uranus and Gemini. So let me just tune in more with that Mercury quintile Uranus. Again, I'm getting very much that progress and change. I'm feeling that very strong 90s energy of like the early 1990s with that Uranus and Gemini energy. Like that's just what I feel with that. And there's stuff that is coming to light. It's almost like there's something about that energy that maybe needs to come back in some way. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm getting that energy, but and maybe it does need to come back in some way. Maybe there's something about that era, about that time that was missed, that now it's needing to come back for whatever reason. Right? It's not necessarily saying we need to go back in time, but maybe there was progress there that could have been made through that energy that I don't want to necessarily couldn't have, maybe it couldn't have, or it didn't, and now it's happening now instead. But that's what it feels like, and with this Mercury retrograde, it's going over, it's being brought to light and this stuff is going to go over again through this retrograde pattern, through this theme. But with that quintile, what is... I don't know why, but it feels like it's being brought up from the past. Something, I don't understand this. That quintile energy feels like it's coming through from the past. What the fuck? Can you help me to understand this more, please? Okay, I get it. It's something that was hidden in the past. Not necessarily hidden, but it wasn't brought to the forefront. It's something that happened that was maybe, like I said, that hidden in plain sight, like it was happening, but it wasn't in the forefront. I have no idea what the fuck this is. I'm just gonna say it. I'm feeling that this is coming through, but it's like I said, it's something that was there that wasn't necessarily hiding. It existed at the time, but now is relating to whatever this progress that's coming up and is being brought to our awareness for whatever reason. I don't know. That's what I'm getting with that. Anyway, let's move on to Wednesday. Wednesday. Here we're going to have Mercury again in semi-sextile to Mars. I'm feeling this Virgo energy coming up again. So Mercury semi-sextile Mars. Oh, this feels a bit, I think there's a lot that's going to need to be fixed. Like I'm feeling that, because it's like stuff that is broken, like detail stuff, day-to-day practical things is going to really come up here, is what that feels like. Especially with this Mercury, obviously rules Virgo and is in shadow, approaching retrograde here in Leo. So we're highlighting a lot of stuff. Leo, the sun rules Leo. This is illuminating. This is highlighting. I feel like it's just highlighting a lot of stuff here that there's a certain masculine energy that needs to take action and maybe deal with this kind of stuff. And I mean that as an energy, not necessarily like just the men dealing with it, but anyway, it's not just, I mean it as an energy. Okay, let's just leave it at that. Let me just tune into this a bit more. Yeah, there's like practical stuff that just, it's not working. Something's not working, something's breaking, something is just, and it's a very practical kind of thing that there's details that it's like, it's being something's either thrown in our face or really coming to light in some way that something isn't working from a very practical perspective. And it feels very like masculine. It feels very masculine. So whether we're dealing with maybe types of that kind of a vibe that relates to more of a traditional masculine type of career or masculine type of parts of the world, society that just isn't working anymore in that sense, or whether it relates to just it's needing to take action, but it almost feels like it's stalled. It's like we don't know what to do because that's all we've ever done, and that's practically isn't working anymore. And it almost feels like that masculine energy needs to change in some way. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's move on to Thursday, the 10th here, where we're going to have this full moon here in Capricorn. All right. Okay. Let me tune into this full moon in Capricorn here. Being drawn to this 90s energy again, and then a release. But I feel like this restrictive aspect of this Capricornian type, like it's that Capricorn, like. But maybe as it relates to that, like, okay, hold on. I know that 90s energy, that nurturance vibe is that sun in Cancer. And then there's like this, there's like a really negative, restrictive, authoritative aspect to that moon in Capricorn. And then there's that 90s feminine energy with that sun in Cancer that I feel like there's an opposing energy here. But it's like that authoritative, negative Capricornian energy is what gets released. Through the help of whatever that 90s energy was. I don't know. Honestly, guys, I feel like I'm an idiot talking like for what I'm saying, but I don't know how to describe this. I don't know how else to describe what I'm saying. It's like, it's so weird. And I don't know how else to say it other than that we're just going to have to experience to see it for what it actually is. But there is that strong release that is occurring here of whatever those control mechanisms are or were or whatever. Through whatever this strong feminine humanitarian type of energy that I feel with the sun in Cancer is pushing to release out those old authoritarian ways. That's what I feel like. Anyway, Also on this day too, we're going to have Juno coming direct. It's not showing yet. Let me just maybe tune into that with Juno coming direct here. I feel like it's progress forward on whatever these contracts and partnerships are initially. That's what it feels like, Juno coming direct. Yeah, so whatever was transformed and changed, whatever changes were made regarding these contractual partnerships, business contracts, etc. during this Juno retrograde is now beginning to move forward as Juno comes direct here in this way. All right. And maybe that relates to whatever release of authoritarian stuff that is happening there with that final blow, because the full moon happens and then Juno goes direct. We're also going to have here Venus in a semi-sextile to Jupiter. So let me just kind of tune into this. I feel, okay, initially it feels like a lot of communication with like people, a lot of other people. It feels very Libran in terms of like relationships, partnerships, and communication with a lot of other people. There's that air sign energy that's coming through. But it feels feminine to me. I think that's coming from either Jupiter and Cancer or that Venus type of energy. It feels a bit more Venus-y. There is a feminine energy in Cancer though, but it feels like more mothering, more nurturing. But of course with Jupiter it's expanding whatever that Venus energy is in Gemini through that communication, etc. Again, it feels like a strong feminine energy coming through with this, but there's communication between relationships and partnerships. That's like coming through again here. I don't know why I'm feeling drawn to like this aspect of, again, going like back to the 90s, like watching Oprah. I'm getting like Oprah, like this feminine energy that's like, because she had her show, right? The Oprah Winfrey show, and she was out there. She'd be interviewing and talking to people. That's like that's that communicative feminine vibe that I'm getting with this, as like a strong feminine woman talking, or like that expression and talking. I have no idea what the 90s has to do with it. With any of this, and now Oprah is coming into this. I don't know, but that's what it feels like. I never know what I'm gonna get when I tune into these things, but that's just, honestly, that's just what it feels, guys. That's just what it feels. Okay, let's go move on to Friday the 11th here, and okay. So we're going to have the sun here making aspects to the nodes. It's going to trine the north node and sextile the south node. So let me just tune into this a bit more. There's a weirdness to that. There's that 90s energy that is still there, dealing with like fucking Oprah and whatever. I don't know. Honestly. But there's something that is being released here from a practical sense. There's like a negative part of that that's letting go of and then removing in this new direction. This is one of the weirdest videos I've ever fucking done, I think. Honestly. Because that Cancer feels very like mothering, nurturing, like. But there's just something here with this Virgo energy that's for practical, like they're looking at the details of something that needs to be let go of because it's no longer working. Okay, and then with this trine to the north node, it's almost like we're heading in a new direction that we should have been in already. It's relating to whatever this 90s vibe is. It's like there was something that should have happened back then, and whatever that energy was that didn't. And now it's being worked on now. I have no idea what any of this is or what this means or whatever, or maybe it relates to somebody, like those of us who were alive back then. I mean, I was alive, but I was little. But like, it's that vibe of like maybe something that should have happened, maybe even in our own individual lives then that didn't, and now it's coming back for us in some way. I have no fucking clue, but that all I'm saying is that's what that energy feels like with that aspect. And maybe it could be like that on a global scale as well. There was something that could have, should have occurred that didn't, and now it's occurring, and we're letting go of the negative practical stuff that maybe happened that shouldn't have, and now we're moving forward in an appropriate, proper direction that was maybe seems unknown to us, but it feels like it was supposed to have happened. I have no clue. This is, like I said, this is the weirdest video I think I've ever done. Yeah, okay. We're also going to have Mercury here in biquintile to the North Node. Okay, Mercury in Leo. Mercury shadow in Leo, biquintile to the North Node. What it feels like, again, is going over this old stuff. Stuff is like we're going over this stuff. Whatever's coming up in the shadow is coming up for a reason. To be relooked at, reworked, so that we can move forward in a new direction. The path, what it feels like, is where we should have been on in terms of whether it's a spiritual path or whether we've been led in a higher vibrational way. Like this is Pisces, led in a more compassionate, more high vibrational way. Again, maybe more of that like Princess Diana humanitarian stuff, that compassionate aspect of Pisces, moving in that direction. How's that biquintile? Again, it's something that existed but was just not looked at in the way that it should have been. It was almost like behind the scenes energy, and now it's coming up for a re-review because we have to move in that direction in some way. I don't know. It's just weird. It's just really weird. It's just really weird. Let's move on to Saturday the 12th. The only thing happening this day that I can see from my little list here is Saturn goes retrograde, but it does that at 10 p.m. my time, so not till later in the day in North America. See, it's not even showing on the chart yet. I have it set for 2:36. Okay, so again, Saturn in Aries going to go retrograde here. A lot of, Saturn in Aries, like I said, is dealing with those boundaries towards our own self-identity, independence, sovereignty, etc. And we've kind of seen a lot of that stuff occurring, whether it's on an individual level or certain things like breaking apart, breaking up, with boundaries being set. On a global level, I won't get into that, but it's kind of happening in that way. But let me just see here. Let me just tune into this Saturn retrograde. Yeah, it feels like a reworking of these things, of like the independence, sovereignty, etc. It's a relook at that kind of stuff of what I've already talked about with that Saturn and Aries energy. Let me just tune in a bit more. Saturn retrograde. It's almost looking at where you haven't set boundaries yet. It's like Saturn's like, hey, have you looked at this? Hey, remember this? We've gone over this now. Now we're going back, because it's like, hey, you need to look at this. Hey, you need to see this. That's the kind of energy that I get with that, with this initial Saturn going retrograde here in Aries. So for those that are experiencing their Saturn return now with Aries, this is going to be initial, like maybe you've started to get the hit of, because Saturn in Aries, I always consider it's like your performance review. Because Saturn is where your growth lies, right? It's where you chose to grow in this lifetime. And it's like, well, how far have you grown in this? And then this is going to be highlighted more, especially if you haven't really done your Saturn work. It's going to be highlighted more. And then it's going to come up for you, and then if you continue to ignore it through the retrograde, it's going to show up again, be like, hey, remember this? Hey, we've looked at this just, a few weeks ago, a few months ago. Here it is again. You got to have a look. It's like that kind of an energy that is coming up there to be reworked. And again, this is setting appropriate boundaries to support our own individuality, sovereignty, etc. is the vibe that I'm getting from this. However, on an individual level, that depends on your chart, what it's aspecting, what house it's in, etc. Okay? All right. I'm just going to end it there. All right. I think that's all I'm going to do for this week. It just, I don't know. It just honestly feels kind of weird. We're just going to have to see how this all plays out. I honestly have no idea. But whatever that message was that was coming through there is obviously whatever somebody needs to hear, or whatever will be occurring. I don't know. Anyways, if you made it this far in the video, leave a purple heart in the comments so that I know you're a real one. I appreciate you all for watching, and thank you all. I hope to see you in the next video. Bye for now. Bye.